it was compulsory purchased for about £1 an acre, and in a sense it's people's land. The same TD mentioned the fact that a lot of the titles of Coillte lands may be in dispute. I'm not sure if he's a solicitor, but he was aware that on many occasions Coillte do not have the full title, and that's another issue that needs to be investigated. Again, regarding the ownership, the full ownership of the land that the trees are on. So look, thank you very much, and it's great that everybody came, and keep up signing the petition. The petition is a mandate for the people, and it's direct democracy. With 40,000 signatures. There's another petition with 4,000 on it, the Donadee Forest Park route. 40,000 signatures is equivalent, in a sense, if that was votes, to possibly the election of 3 politicians, 3 TDs. So we want to increase that mandate and become stakeholders in the future of Irish forestry on behalf of the people. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Andrew. And right, I think we should make a bit more noise, and then if anybody else wants to get up and say a few words, but let's really raise our voices as loud as we can and face out to the streets or the public and see us. And maybe somebody, I'll get the chance going, somebody else would, because my voice is beginning to give out here, help out with the mic here and doing the chants. Our forest, not for sale! 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 Our trees, not for sale! Our trees, not for sale! Our forest, not for sale! Our forest, not for sale! Our trees, not for sale! Not for sale! Our resources, not for sale! Whose trees? Our trees! Whose trees? Our trees! Whose forest? Our forest! Whose forest? Our forest! Whose resources? Our whose resources? Our resources! What do we want? Save our forest! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Save our forest! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Save our forest! What do we want? Save our forest! When do we want it? Now! When do we want it? Now! Okay, who's taking over the slogans? Carl, Joe, does somebody do a few more slogans here? What do we want? When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Save our forest! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Save our forest! When do we want it? Now! Carl, get up here with you. I got a job to do. Whose trees? Our trees! 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 Our trees! What do we want? Save our forest! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Save our forest! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Save our forest! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Save our forest! When do we want it? When do we want it? When do we want it? Now! Whose trees? Our trees! 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 What do we want? Save our forest! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Save our forest! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Save our forest! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Save our forest! When do we want it? What do we want? Save our forests. When do we want it? What do we want? Save our forests. When do we want it? What do we want? Save our forests. When do we want it? What do we want? Save our forests. When do we want it? When do we want it? When do we want it? Whose trees? Our trees. 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 Our forest not for sale. 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 Our trees. Whose trees? 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 Our trees.
I'll tell you what I am going to do. I'm going to read you a poem. I'm actually going to read you a poem. If I can get it my phone. Is that okay? Right. One second now. Sorry about this interim. Okay, I'm going to find this. I wrote it because I was gathering all the ivy and putting it in. And my return to activism after about 20 years being in a family cocoon was because of Teresa Tracy and her trees. And this is really important, really, really important that our woods remain our woods. They are part of our land.
And it's crucial that the issues here are brought out in full view of the Irish people, who by a huge majority, in my view, would be absolutely opposed and are absolutely opposed to this move. Now, as Richard just says, history are a very important part of our history, and actually our literary history as well, relates to the forests. Now, it's a long time since I was in secondary school myself, unfortunately, but one of the beautiful poems that we learned in Irish, I still remember, which was called Kilcash, and the two first lines of it were Cadíana made fasta gan aimid, ta deran na Coillte lár, and it dates all the way back to the 1700s, and it was lamenting the desecration of a rich area of woodland which was related to the imperialist control and intervention at that time. There is another wonderful song called Bonnie Portmore by the Canadian Irish singer Lorena McKennitt. Do look it up on YouTube and play it. It's a beautiful song. Again, from a few hundred years ago, it's lamenting the forests at Portmore, County Antrim, were knocked actually in a storm, but then were floated away by the private interests in the interests of imperialism. Fast forward to today, and isn't it incredible that after our people threw off the direct yoke of imperialism, we have the new financial imperialism of the financial markets dictating now that our forests should be privatized in this way. It's history repeating itself in a perverse way that in my view is absolutely opposed by the Irish people. My last point is, yes, we should have a huge mobilization of people power, but I want to say in particular in relation to one organisation or a few organisations that have a particular responsibility here. The Trade Union Impact did a very, very good report and analysis in opposing the privatisation of Coillte, with wonderful facts, figures, and really strong and pervasive arguments with reference to the detrimental consequences in other countries where this was tried. That is a union that has spent the last several weeks inside with the government working out this nefarious Croke Park deal. I'm calling on that union and on the unions generally, particularly those that represent workers in Coillte, to protect this natural resource and to protect their own workers and workers going into the future by taking very strong action, including industrial action if necessary, in order to stop this process in its tracks. And the union should tell the crowd in here, and the Labour Party in particular, that this will not be tolerated. And that should go hand in hand with a movement of people power as represented here and in other areas in order to stop this absolutely objectionable and revolting proposal to privatise critical areas of our natural resources.
Thanks very much, Joe. Now maybe we make a bit more noise. I know it's cold enough and I don't want to keep people here all night, but maybe we'll stay till 6 or so. And just to say as well that the debate starts at 7:30. Most of you probably have to get home and have things to do. If anybody would like to come in and see the debate, which will run between 7:30 and 9, and the vote will take place at 9, just come up and let me or is Sarah around there? Sarah, waving her hand, and just give her your name, and then we can bring a reasonable number of people in if you're able to stay. I know a lot of you won't be able to stay, but it would be no harm if there were some people in the gallery just to let the politicians know that people are watching them. Oh, there's another TD who support that thing. Actually, maybe I'll just let Catherine say a word as well. Catherine Murphy, TD, independent TD, who's been very supportive of the motion, and she's been spearheading a big fight on the issue of climate change and brought legislation recently to the Dáil on climate change, and as I'm sure she'll explain to you, our forests are also critical if we're going to do something about climate change.
Okay, thanks very much. And I'll just focus on the issue of climate change. We absolutely need our forests. They're the carbon sink. We're already going to have difficulty meeting EU and international targets. And without that side of the equation, we're going to run into serious problems. We've already postponed into the future a huge debt that is not our debt onto the shoulders of our children and our grandchildren. We're now going to put another burden in terms of environmental costs unless we keep control and we actually develop a decent forestry policy. You know, and as far as I'm concerned, that this is just a strategic asset that absolutely has to be retained. It's our asset. It's not theirs to sell. And it just simply doesn't make economic or environmental sense. I was delighted when the ULA brought this motion last night and tonight, and many of us independents signed that motion, and we're very happy to. So hopefully some of you will be able to stay for the debate, because I think it is really important that, you know, that it's noticed in the gallery when people are there and they've an interest in the particular issue. So thanks very much for turning out tonight. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Catherine. And just the other thing to say, if you do want to go to gallery, leave your name with Sarah. Also, if you do have to go away, but you want to keep involved and notified about future activities and campaigning on this issue, please leave your name there as well, and we'll put you on an email list or text list for future protests, because this is definitely not going to be decided in our favour unless there's a miracle tonight, but but neither is it decided in their favour. And I do want to say one word of sort of optimistic word in this regard. We've suffered a lot of defeats at the hands of this government and the last government in terms of brutal, stupid austerity measures. However, on this issue, you can smell their nervousness over the last few days. The comments that have been made by government spokespeople have not been the usual arrogant, dismissive,
ridiculing comments. They've been very apologetic. They've been very, what's the word, sort of diplomatic in the way they've responded. And it's because they know they really are on they are promoting an indefensible position. And the coalition against the sale of Coillte has really expanded over the recent weeks. They made the commitment, I think it was last year, that they were going to sell the harvesting rights of Coillte. Last night, in response to the opening of the debate, Brendan Howland, the Minister, reminded us that they had made that commitment, but then at the end of it said that before they actually went ahead, they would review the pros and cons, the merits of it, the finances and economics of it, and no decision would be made until they were certain it was a good deal for the state. Now, that was a qualification on their part, and I think they are already constructing a get-out clause for themselves in case the level of public opposition reaches a pitch where they simply can't sustain going through with this. And I think that is serious. I'm not just saying that because I want to believe it. There are very real signs. And as Joan mentioned, the fact that the Chief Whip of the Labour Party, Emmett Stagg, said publicly in the Dáil last night that he thought the government should reconsider. We had the chairperson of the Agricultural Committee, who is a Fine Gaeler, who's very nervous because he's in Wicklow, he's based in Wicklow, saying the government should reconsider. This means there is a serious crisis in the government over whether or not to go through with this. That doesn't mean we've won it either, but it does mean this can be won. It can be won, and it is people power that will determine it. So please get involved, get active, stay in touch over the coming weeks, and we can win this one. You wanted to say something, did you? Go on, quickly, sorry. We'll make a few more chances.
Right. First of all, the children's referendum, as you know from last year, was act of treason. 1997, McKennis. That's where, this is how they are able to push the environment. Article 6, Article 8, Protocol 11 and Protocol 14. We need to actually go against the referendum because it was illegal in the first place, and then we might be able to stop the environment because that's how they're able to push it through.
Thanks very much. Okay, so let's make a bit of noise, and if there's anyone who, when we're finishing, maybe who could sing a song, that would be good and appropriate, I think. I saw Bree Smith around there, who I know can sing, if she's around, or maybe somebody else might come up and volunteer to sing an appropriate song before the end. But, okay, let's make a bit of noise again. Ouch! Whose trees? Whose trees? Whose forests? Whose forests? Whose resources? Whose resources?